Chapter 8, The Pre-Fight. Tonight, Caleb will put his belt back on the line, and I'll have a front row seat to wish him the worst pain a Jackra fight can inflict. We board the stadium's glass elevators. We meet Gabby in front of Gate 5 in the main corridor. My brother is waiting for us. He's all smiles and good looks. He walks over to us and we hug, holding each other tight. Gabriel says, "I'm glad to see you. You look well, don't you?" I answer, "Yes, everything's fine. Everything went well." Gabriel continues, "Will you tell me all about it in the grandstand? Shall we go?" I reply, "Come on." We enter the corridor leading to the stands. The stadium is finally revealed. Immense is not a sufficient word to characterize the size of this space. Gigantic, in fact. Indeed, this venue can hold up to 800,000 people. And given tonight's event, they're packed to the rafters. An artificial guide comes to meet us. A luminous sphere floating in the air invites us to follow it and leads us to the seats Gabriel has reserved. We're comfortably seated just behind the VIPs, for whom being seen is as important as seeing. We talk about my operation and Gabriel's daily routine in our father's dojo. I miss my father. He used to respect certain old customs, such as the sandwich at the stadium. Nostalgia prompts me to share this moment with those I love. I say, "I'll give you 2 minutes. I'm going to get some sandwiches. Just like Dad." They approve. Gabriel says, in his memory, "You're right, gladly." I leave them both, leave the room and return to the stadium corridors. I turn left into the main corridor. There's a multitude of people and a cheerful atmosphere prevails. A little further on, internal information appears in my field of vision. Internal tank 70% full. I have to head for the toilets. Just to my left is the right place to empty. I enter, and on the left are the wash basins, and on the right, a string of closed cubicles. I enter one of them. The cubicle detects my needs and adapts the receptacle configuration. A cone positioned at the end of an articulated arm fits just right. The clumsiest of the clumsy wouldn't know how to aim anywhere but where it's needed. As if needing help to get the process started, the wall in front of me turns into a screen, and I contemplate a fountain with a steady stream of water. Given my artificial nature, however, I no longer need it. When I'm done, the articulated arm retracts. I get out and walk over to the wash basin. Just as I'm about to wash my hands, 2 burly men enter. They're wearing long black coats, presumably armored. The dents they try to hide on their left flank leave no doubt. They are 2 bodyguards who have come to satisfy a physiological emergency. They enter the cabins. I turn my hearing up to maximum and focus on their conversation. As I thought, they are discussing their client. Presumably, he's someone important, a high-level regent, and his area of expertise is homeland security. For me, this could be an opportunity. I finished washing my hands, which actually served no purpose. They were clean. But the habits of our old bodies persist. Then I leave the bathroom and stand to the left of the door. I pretend to read an information hologram. I wait. They exit and turn right. A little further on, they join the rest of their team and their prestigious client in discussion with the stadium management. After a few final words of politeness, they start walking towards a VIP lounge. When they arrive, the doors open wide, a bellboy bows and welcomes this distinguished guest. I can't enter head-on without encountering various levels of security. But further back in the passageway, I notice a discreet service door. I move to the left and observe for a moment the entry and exit process. It's simple. Staff walk past a detector, approach a wristband to a wall-mounted terminal, and the door opens. Here's someone approaching in service dress. It might be a little tight, but it'll do. I discreetly step in behind him. As he passes his bracelet, the door opens. At the same time, I put my hand on his shoulder, push him forward and say as I walk. I say, "Hi, security sent me. We've got a problem with your ID bracelet. We need to sort it out right away." The employee replies, "Really? But it's..." My hand slides from her shoulder to the back of her head and I propel her violently towards the wall in front of us. It's an immediate knockout. I carry him into a machine room just to our right. There, the 43 square feet of this room contain products and other maintenance accessories. I take the opportunity to change and take his identification bracelet. I tie him up and gag him just in case. I return to the service corridor and turn left, towards the VIP lounge. A levitating cart holds trays of festive drinks and other victuals. I take one and make my entrance. The event that brings us here works in my favor. They are all captivated by the dances and other stage games taking place in the stadium. In the distance, I recognize the one I'm interested in and approach him. I immediately activate my hacking functions. My systems search for his internal network. Once isolated, I corrupt his locks without breaking them. I don't want to leave any trace of my passage in his data. Alright, I'm in. As I quickly identify a few files that might interest me, a bodyguard approaches me. "Now's not the time, I need some time to download the heavy files." The bodyguard says, "I don't like what you've got on your tray. Do you have any loads of Blue Lagoon?" I answer, "No, sorry, we're all out." He looks at me, disappointed. The bodyguard says, "Well, never mind. I'll have this then." He grabs a cup from my tray and returns to his client and the rest of his team. One of the security staff turns to him, looking disapproving. Presumably, a telepathic exchange is prompting him to put the cup down immediately. Caught off guard, he immediately puts down his glass. I pretend to step back and offer the guests the remaining drinks on my tray. Most are indifferent, or help themselves without a glance for the waiter in me. I pass quietly in a loop, just behind my target. I've got it. My systems have just taken over his internal network. However, I can't take everything. Given the loading times, I identify 2 folders, but I can only take one. I choose the one that seems most useful: surveillance rounds, data banks and laboratories for secret development projects. It takes me a moment, despite the power of the techniques I'm using. The algorithms I employ are of rare performance, attacking and assaulting the target server without triggering the slightest alert. This intrusion leaves no trace of its passage. For once, this technological achievement is not the fruit of Jacques' work, but of a very good acquaintance of his. I believe her name is Amethyst. But I'm getting impatient. I've got to do something. If I keep going round in circles, I'm bound to be spotted. I've got it. The VIP lounge is enhanced by the negotiated presence of some pseudo-celebrities. Kalinda is one of them. The blurring of her true sexual nature is one of the marketing tricks he knows how to use. Tonight, she's perched on stilt pumps, giving her a waistline that, on its own, attracts most of the attention. Her large Renaissance-style gown, huge Marie Antoinette-style wig, long eyelashes and playful voice captivate the audience. He's voluble and laughs out loud. But she has to entertain everyone. So he leaves the ecstatic group at his feet and heads off to join another. He passes within my reach. I turn when he's close, and at the right moment, I straighten my left heel backwards, blocking his right foot. He topples violently forward, screaming lyrically, and sprawls out. Here I am again in the wide main corridor, heading swiftly for the grandstands. On the way, I pass a snack bar. I keep my promises. In memory of my father, I fight the urge to leave the queue at the snack bar I've just joined. I wait. Then I wait some more. Finally, it's my turn. I place my order. Here I am, armed with 3 sandwiches. I can return, proud of my achievement, to my seat. But I have to justify myself. They were worried. Indeed, it took a long time. My excuse: it was very busy. No need to say more. Finally, comfortably seated, we can enjoy our famous gastronomic trophies. We gobble up these nostalgia concentrates with pleasure. All around us, the audience is hysterical. Suddenly, the flashbulbs go off, putting an end to our discussion. Zeno Denti, View TV's star presenter, makes his entrance, closely followed by the pulpy Zeno girls. The audience hisses and screams. The metal showman, sporting an apple green tie over a garish orange suit, raises his arms in a V shape, urging the crowd to show more. He moves towards the weightless camera closest to him. The control room frames a close-up. A toothy grin graces his disguised face, giving it a grotesque, evil look. The presenter attacks: "Credit to you, my friends. Credit, yes, credit, because tonight, the stakes are high and this match promises moments of rare intensity." Caleb Rome puts his Epoxia championship shield back on the line against Jackra's rising star, the terrible Nantor Joe Louis. My friends, and you who are following this match on View TV, have bet big on this clash of the titans. So believe me, Zeno, you'll get your money's worth. But before we get down to business, I'd like to offer you a little secret entertainment to whet your appetite. Zeno steps back and brings his hand close to the camera. He reveals a chick chirping and squirming between his metal fingers. The host's voice becomes tearful: "Isn't he sweet? Did you know, my friends, that the avian race is tending to disappear in our beautiful country? That's right. Its representatives are becoming so rare that this chick is certainly one of the last natural specimens. Do you want it to live or not? Do you want it to live or not? The chick doesn't deserve this brutal and useless death. So I use the stadium's animation functions and vote to save the very young animal. Many in the stands follow my lead and vote too. But over 90% vote for his tragic end. The sentence is immediate. Zeno suddenly closes his hand on the little bird, which explodes in a spray of blood. Macabre cries of horror and admiration erupt in the room, while the host breaks into a fat, sardonic laugh. Well, there's no more. Ha ha ha. There's no doubt about it, ratings are going to be through the roof. The sorry View TV host continues his show: "Please, my friends, relax. This chick didn't have time to suffer." Whereas in a few moments, before your amazed eyes, two prestigious fighters are likely to endure a much longer and crueler ordeal. The host now rolls his crazy eyes as the hallucinated audience hangs on his every word. This most personal introduction was only meant to announce a bitter and bleeding show. The crowd cheers as the presenter turns and points to a camera. "You who are at home, stay with us. Tonight, I promise you sweat. I promise blood, I promise live death. FOI de Zeno." To the cheers of the crowd, the metal puppet leaves the arena as the messages are sent out. Advertisers invade the holographic screens. And on a case-by-case basis, according to our consumer profile, personalized spots appear in our personal field of vision. A few minutes later, a huge door at the back of the stadium opens. Caleb appears. He strides forward, emerging from the semi-darkness, plunging into the light that the spotlights have focused on him. Despite his modest stature in the world of Jackra, the Epoxian champion inspires awe. His powerful musculature covered in tribal tattoos is no stranger to the fear he arouses. Around his waist, he wears the precious golden shield that he's putting back into play tonight. At the opposite end of the spectrum, Nantor takes his place opposite his opponent. The difference in stature is impressive. The Nordic giant outstrips Caleb by at least 2 heads. After a brief moment during which they observe each other to the cheers of the audience, the two fighters take a few steps back to grab their weapons. A Kyriel axe for Caleb and a Technotrek mace for Nantor. They wait for the signal announcing the start of the fight. I stare at Caleb. I focus on him. I think of my father too. For a moment, I'm far from the fight. I sink into a past I thought was gone forever. I think of that unfortunate pupil that Chap almost massacred, so long ago. I remember him as a child. My father had brought him home after rescuing him from the clutches of 3 savages who had mistreated him, in the depths of a sinister, poor district of Epoxia. He was in a sorry state. I saw gratitude in the eyes of this lost boy. Chap stayed with us, under the care of my father, who treated him like a new son. He had the same respect for him as he had for Gabriel and me, and an affection, I believe, that was sincere and deep. He entrusted him with the upkeep of the dojo. My relationship with Chap was satisfactory, even if I sometimes found him strange in his silences or in his sorrows, the cause of which I had no idea. As the crowd screams and shouts, I remember that I'm there, but I'm not, and even the cries of jubilation no longer reach me. The imminence of battle brings back memories I thought were buried. I can see our comrade advancing towards Chap. Training was about to begin. Leia was confident, happy to be perfecting her skills. She had an undeniable charm. We all loved her. She was more than a member of our dojo. She was the mascot. I smile, thinking back to the troubled glances we sometimes exchanged. At the time, I thought I was in love with her. Always even-tempered, her pretty face lit up by a graceful smile, Leia was our sunshine, our little princess. We all sat around the tatami. Chap had seemed particularly irritated throughout the day. I'd realized over time that he'd become unstable and introverted. My father was proud of his protégé's performance. As for me, I sensed a latent aggressiveness. It was perceptible in every new move my father forced upon us. Leia fought well. She sometimes smiled at her opponent. Some people took offense at this smile. Yet, in her mind, there was no offense. My father organized the fighting groups. Me against my brother. Leia against Chap. And, finally, the signal. My father said, "Fight." Everything began normally. Then Chap decided to change the pace. His face transformed into an expression of furious madness. Chap took over. Suddenly, his rage was unleashed. He pounced on his prey, lashing out with all his strength, all his anger. I closed my eyes for a moment, remembering the blows he delivered with unrestrained violence to the unfortunate woman. I shudder as I see the blood spurt from the pretty face. The arch shattered, the forehead slashed, the lips swollen. In a fraction of a second, Leia was no longer a beautiful young girl. One more blow and an eye burst out of its socket. He continued to strike, despite our father's intervention. His inexplicable rage increased his already exceptional strength tenfold. Leia lay inert on the ground. For a moment, we thought she was dead. Chap threw himself on her again, probably trying to kill her. He was covered in her blood, but not as much as she was. Gabriel, my father, and I leapt to our feet. The other students quickly followed suit. The memory freezes me. We never understood why he did it. The next day, my father bitterly dismissed it. Over time, the closeness and even affection between him and my father turned to hatred. Our family became a prime target for Chap's misdeeds. But I'm jolted out of my reverie by the sound of metal.